Have you ever wondered what happens when a long-running, public feud between a major charity and a global celebrity finally lands inside a courtroom? It is a scenario that sounds like the plot of a high-stakes legal drama, but for Sentebale, the organization founded by Prince Harry, this has become a very real and potentially explosive reality. On April 10th of this year, the charity officially announced that it had commenced legal proceedings in the High Court of England and Wales, specifically naming Prince, Harry, and former trustee Mark Dyer as defendants. If you thought the drama surrounding the Sussexes had finally cooled down, think again, because this development suggests that we are heading into an incredibly messy and unpredictable legal battle that could redefine the reputation of everyone involved. When you look at the landscape of high-profile litigation, it is almost impossible not to think about the concept of karma. Over the last 5 years, Prince Harry has been one of the most litigious figures in the public eye, constantly taking his grievances to court. Now, the tables have turned, and he finds himself on the receiving end of a defamation suit. But while the headlines might be sensational, the underlying reality is much more complex. This isn't just a sudden explosion. It is the culmination of over a year of simmering tension that dates back to the spring of 2025. Back then, Sentebale began flagging that a coordinated, adverse media campaign was causing significant operational disruption and damaging their standing with strategic partners. Now, they are seeking the court's protection and restitution, claiming that the viral impact of this campaign led to an onslaught of cyberbullying that ultimately forced their hand. To understand why this is such a significant move, you have to look at what was happening behind the scenes last year. Dr. Sophie Chandela, who has been a central figure in this conflict, initially framed her actions as whistleblowing, citing poor governance, weak management, and a toxic culture of bullying and harassment. At the time, her claims were met with skepticism, but the subsequent findings from the Charity Commission added a layer of legitimacy to the concerns. The Commission found clear evidence of governance failures and a lack of policy clarity, ultimately criticizing the organization for allowing internal disputes to escalate into the public sphere. For a charity, that public exposure is arguably the most dangerous outcome of all, because it threatens the one thing that keeps the lights on: trust. If you are unfamiliar with how defamation law actually works in the UK, it is helpful to know that there is a very high bar to clear. It isn't enough for someone to simply say something that you find hurtful or even untrue. Under Section 1 of the Defamation Act 2013, you have to prove that the publication of those statements has caused, or is likely to cause, serious harm to your reputation. This is the hurdle where many of these cases live or die. Because we don't have access to the specific legal filings yet, we are in a bit of a waiting game, but the core of the issue will likely come down to financial impact. Sentebale will need to demonstrate that this smear campaign directly resulted in the loss of major donors or partners. If they can't point to a tangible decline in support directly linked to these specific statements, the case becomes significantly more difficult to win. There is also the question of whether this lawsuit is actually in the best interests of the charity, which is the primary duty of any trustee. When you are managing an organization that relies on the goodwill of the public, dragging your dirty laundry through the high court for months, or perhaps even years, is a massive gamble. While it is true that the organization has confirmed the legal costs are being covered by external funding, meaning charitable donations aren't being siphoned away to pay for lawyers, the reputation damage is a different story. In their public response, representatives for Prince, Harry, and Mark Dyer have already hit back hard, calling it extraordinary that legal action is being pursued against the very people who helped build the organization. This framing ensures that the narrative stays focused on conflict rather than the charity's mission, which is precisely the kind of drama that turns off potential high-net-worth donors who generally prefer to avoid controversy at all costs. Looking ahead, the defense's strategy will likely hinge on a few classic pillars of defamation law. Prince Harry and Mark Dyer might argue that their statements were substantially true, or that they constituted honest opinion based on reasonable information. In the UK system, if they claim it was an honest opinion, they don't have to prove the statement is objectively true. They only have to show that a reasonable person could have held that opinion based on the facts available at the time. This leaves a massive window for a prolonged, expensive, and deeply personal legal fight where both sides will be forced to undergo the grueling process of discovery, potentially dragging out even more details that the charity would likely prefer to keep private. Ultimately, whether you believe Sentebale is standing up for its integrity or simply pouring fuel on an already burning fire, one thing is certain. This is going to be a story that dominates the headlines for the foreseeable future. If the goal was to silence the criticism and move past the controversies of 2025, this lawsuit is a high-stakes gamble that could either provide a definitive resolution or lead to even more damaging revelations. We are watching a fascinating, albeit messy, clash of interests, and the outcome could have lasting consequences for how charities handle public disputes with their former leadership. I will be keeping a close eye on the filings as they emerge, so make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss any updates on this developing story. In the meantime, I am curious to hear your take. Is this a necessary step for the charity to clear its name, or is it just prolonging the damage? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video.